and Earl had gotten out his television set, which he usually kept hidden in a closet, and he was watching the Minnesota-Wisconsin football game, and he was very excited, and he didn't see Grandpa coming in through the door, and because Grandpa disapproved of television because they showed movies, and movies meant Hollywood, and that meant drinking and adultery, and so there he had the TV in front of him, and he was excited because Minnesota was on the Wisconsin 20-yard line with 2 feet to go for a first down, and he was yelling at them to go for it, as Grandpa came in, and he just saw Earl standing in front of the TV, and so there was a glow around him, and he thought this was the rapture, and that Earl was being raptured, and not he, and Grandpa tackled him from behind so that he would be raptured along with Earl, and then he saw it was just a television. It struck me as I was making up this story that this was not the best monologue I'd ever told in my life. But I stood out on the street afterward and shook hands with a few hundred people, which is my duty, and they all seemed to think it was a wonderful show. When people congratulate you for something that you think is inferior, it awakens powerful feelings of guilt that go back to your childhood. All this in a week when you were remembering your happy childhood. So that was my week. I'm going to tell you so I don't have to tell anybody else. Don't intend to write this up, make a story out of it. I'm 73, I wrote on Monday. I still am. I live in St. Paul on a limestone bluff above the Mississippi, about 20 miles downstream from Anoka, where I was born, in a white frame house, not so different from the one I grew up in along the river north of Minneapolis. The Gospel Hall of the Plymouth Brethren is across the river, about 8 miles away, where I attended the Sunday morning breaking of bread and the evening gospel meeting and Wednesday night Bible reading. The university I attended on the banks of the river is west of here, where I majored in English, which instilled standards in me I will never achieve, a boulder I will never push to the top of the hill. It's a small life, and when I fly away from it to Rome or Copenhagen or London, I find myself trying to reconstruct the storefronts along Main Street in Anoka, 1955, Carl's Cafe and Shattuck's Soda Fountain, and Diedrich's Department Store and Colburn Hilliard Men's Store, and recover a summer day at Uncle Jim's farm when I was 6, and I fell through a hole in the haymow and banged my head on a wooden feed trough in the bull's pen below, and was carried into the house, and Grandma put wet brown paper on my head that had medicinal value, and to reward me for my bravery, I did not cry. Uncle Jim hoisted me up and set me on his big workhorse, Prince, who was hitched up with Scout to the hay rack, and I clung to Prince's mane and collar as he jogged along a dirt lane through an open gate to the hayfield, where Jim threw forkfuls of mown hay onto the rack, and back to the barn we went. I searched this memory looking for my parents, and they're not there. Only Grandma, who is whistling under her breath as she bakes bread in a wood stove. A Model T sits in the farmyard, Grandma's chickens pecking the gravel around it, and my cousins and I sit in the back seat, and we are singing, "Go tell Grandma, go tell Grandma, go tell Grandma, the old gray goose is dead," and tears run down our cheeks. 60 years later, I can recall exactly which brethren sat where on Sunday morning in the meeting hall for the breaking of bread. My parents and we 6 children sat in the southeast corner of the room, and Grandpa Denham and Aunt Margaret and cousins Roger and Shirley and Aunt Ina sit ahead of me, and Uncle Don and Aunt Elsie sit in the northeast, and in the middle of the room a small table with a loaf of bread and a pitcher of wine, the body and blood of our Lord, sun streaming in the big windows, motes of dust glittering, and after a long silence, waiting for the Spirit to move, my father stands up and he prays, which amazes me. He is shy about praying in public. He is a carpenter, and he feels inadequate to address God in public, but he does it. His sense of inadequacy was inherited by me, and it may be the engine that kept me going all these years. I sustained a weekly radio show for 4 decades that began as a lark and became a success, and I can't recall a single time when I felt accomplished and proud. Not a single moment. I walked around with a microphone and confided fictitious secrets to people I didn't know. I, who have less interest in performance than the average 13-year-old girl, but you get conditioned to it. And once you meet a few faithful listeners, there seems to be some dignity and purpose in it. But after every show, every one, I felt shame. It was so much less than what I wanted it to be. I have prayed in public very few times, and each time I felt sort of proud of myself. We were an odd family. We were definitely odd. We were wary of strangers. A knock on the door was ominous. Family might knock, but then they would open and walk in. Strangers stood at the door, and we did not invite them in or make pleasant small talk. We asked them what they wanted, and we dealt with them out there, and then we sent them away. We were not in the market for friendship. We had no friends. We had family and fellow believers, brethren, except for a few who drifted away, and we didn't talk about them. Strangers were not brethren. They were of the world, and so their friendship was not important to us. We were not out for success or prosperity. To achieve that, you had to hide your faith and accept worldly ways, listen to blasphemy and not speak up, accept vanity, strive for glamour or travel. We had no need to make ourselves beautiful. We are beautiful in God's sight, and that is more than sufficient. We are devoted to the Word, the beautiful King James, and we interpret it for ourselves with no clergy to push us around. And we accept its literal truth, the parting of the Red Sea, the miracles, the resurrection, all of it. My parents avoided frozen or canned food that wasn't frozen or canned by us. It was shameful to pay for something you could do for yourself. They felt honor-bound not to pay outlandish prices for things. They did not feel sheepish about this. Overpaying was a shameful thing. As Christians, they expected to be translated to scenes of unspeakable glory at God's right hand. And in the meantime, Mother patched our clothes and darned our socks. She collected our old cast-off clothing and tore it into strips and knotted them into rugs. In August, we picked bushels of tomatoes from our garden, scorched and peeled them, boiled them in a pressure cooker to make 60 or 70 quarts of stewed tomatoes. Sunday dinner was pot roast and gravy and vegetables from the garden, either fresh or canned. If company were present, we held back and let them have seconds first. We never took the last helping of anything, but we subdivided it